This 700cc Royal Enfield Super Meteor can be seen in an earlier video of mine where I ride it on the short sort of test route, and I actually managed to bungle a couple of gear changes, and we had a bit of a sticky throttle as well. So things didn't go to perfection, but it still rode nicely, and it was great to be aboard a machine that Bob McIntyre rode in a 1958 Thruxton 500 mile event, where he came second to Mike Halewood and his partner. There were teams of two, and I'll come to that in a minute, but basically they came second on this one, and that was pretty much solely due to a fuel tank splitting, where they lost time trying to sort of, well, presumably change the tank. I doubt whether they would have repaired it. They were lapping faster than the Triumph Tiger 110 of Mike Halewood, but there just weren't enough laps left in the race to win it, so they had to make do with second place. A few interesting things about this one. I was told by somebody who knows that that's not a Super Meteor engine, that's a Connie. Well, more interesting than that, it's actually a pre-production Constellation engine that is unstamped. So my guess is that probably this bike started off as a Super Meteor, because it was actually used in 1957 as well for racing, but by 1958 the Constellation engine must have been well on the way, and looks like Royal Enfield put a pre-production Constellation engine into this bike for Bob McIntyre to race against Mike Halewood in a 1958 Thruxton. Anyway, that's the engine that's in it. This machine was actually part restored. The rolling chassis, apart from the paintwork on the fuel tank and toolboxes and the seat unit, the frame and forks and wheels and so on were all together and painted, and the engine was in one piece and looked like brand new, and it was my job, I was given the job by the owner, to put the engine into the frame and get the machine running again. And that's when I encountered a few things, and it ended up where, although the top end, the bottom end was left undisturbed, the top end had to come apart, and I found things like new valve guides with old valves, and the valve seats weren't cut, and new valves put into old guides, and again they weren't ground in. So I sorted out everything that the top end needed, also checked the pistons and rings and bores and so on, put all that back together, and gradually the magneto needed another coil in it as well. That's a Lucas SR2 magneto. You can actually access the coils in them yourself and change them, so I had to do that to get decent sparks. We've got a concentric carburettor on there, which is wrong. It shouldn't be on there. It works, but it's about 10 years too modern. That probably would have been either a monoblock or possibly a TT carburettor even for the racing version. I know that some Constellations had TT carburettors on them, but anyway, it's on there, it works, it's not correct. We've got a great big fuel filter there that's a bit unsightly, but saves any muck or filth getting into the carburettor. Bit by bit I got it working, but one other mystery was that the owner supplied with it brand new exhaust pipes and silencers, and that's what you can see fitted here on this side. But on the other side I fitted the downpipe, and I came to fit in the gear lever, and I just couldn't work out how the gear lever was meant to work, and I tried all sorts of things and I just couldn't get it right. And then I happened to rummage around in a box of bits that came with it, and there was a rusty exhaust downpipe in the box there, and it was this one. And as you can see, it's got the bracket for the rear set gear lever pedal on the exhaust pipe. So that answered a few questions, but that also meant that this exhaust pipe had to go away and be chromed, because it was in a terribly rusty state. So we had it chrome plated. So this is the original exhaust pipe. There's a small dent in it there, which I presume Bob McIntyre might have done that. It was a replacement silencer, same as what we got on the other side, and the mystery of the gear change was solved as well. So it's a very interesting bike, and there was one more surprise as well when I came to put oil in the front forks, and I took out the little plug. I've already got this out to show, to demonstrate. I wanted to put oil down there into the forks as you do on the Enfields, but I couldn't, and whether the camera will pick it up or not, but with the plug out down there, lo and behold, there's the top end of a Norton road holder damper rod looking at us with its lock nut on it. So I actually had to remove the fork legs and fill them with oil, put my finger over the hole and get them back on quickly and do the nuts up to get oil into them. But they've been modified either by Bob McIntyre or Sid Lawton, who was responsible for entering and tuning these machines, and that's what we've got. So when people say, how do you know that this is the bike that Bob McIntyre rode, apart from the frame number and the registration number being correct, little things like that tell you that this is something special. That and the gear lever on the exhaust pipe are not everyday items. So this is indeed the Bob McIntyre Super Meteor Royal Enfield, and rather than try and memorise everything, here's a board that we used to take around to the shows, a sandwich board with all bits of information about the bike and the rider and the tuner and the teams. And here, hopefully anyone wanting to read this stuff, I'm hoping we'll be able to sort of zoom in or pause or whatever you need to do. Any luck, it's all there. There's Bob McIntyre on it. Hopefully this can all be read. Apologies if it can't. I'm doing the best. It's an older restoration, as you can see. I did this 12 years ago for the owner. He very kindly let me keep it to look after and take to shows and so on, and we actually took the machine on a couple of occasions to the Bob McIntyre Memorial race meetings where it was able to parade, which was a nice thing to be able to do with it. And yeah, it seems like a long time now. I started in 2004, Performance Classics. It's now 2020 and I did this one in 2008. So quite a landmark machine for me, and I'm so glad to have been able to not only restore it but even enjoy using it and displaying it. And I just thought that it'd be nice to share a few facts and have a look around, walk around it and point out a few of the interesting features on it. Obviously it's got the double-sided 6-inch brake, which in this instance, in this case, works very well indeed. One final point is this machine's been laid up for some time, and I started work on it yesterday and got it running and hoped to do the ride I did today, yesterday, but there just wasn't time. Among other things, both tyres needed pumping up, they had no air in them. I pumped them up and I did actually ride up and down the lane a couple of times. I put the bike away last night as I ran out of time to, I didn't do the road test, did that today. When I get the machine out this morning and the front tyre was flat, and when I tried blowing it up there was just air hissing out, it wouldn't blow up, so I've taken the wheel off and the tyre off and I found a split in the inner tube, which you probably see it there. But it's quite alarming to think that yesterday, that was alright, and if I'd had the chance I might have taken the ride I did today on it, where I probably reached some fairly high speeds, and that could have gone at any moment. So please folks, if your inner tubes have been in for a while, a good few years, I mean, to be fair, I restored this bike in 2008, but it came to me as a rolling chassis with tyres on it blown up, so no one could really say how old the tyres and tubes are, but just goes to show you can never expect too much out of old inner tubes. It's a pet thing of mine. If a machine's been laid up for any length of time, even if the tyres blow up, please just make sure that your tubes are alright if you've got tubes, because that split there, that wouldn't have gone down slowly, that would have been pop and it would have gone. And on the front, well, I'd probably be in a terrible state today. So please folks, bear that in mind. But anyway, just to recap, there's the Bob McIntyre Royal Enfield Super Meteor. A handsome machine it is. And it sounds absolutely awesome too when it's running.